After having this 2025 Toyota Tundra for a few months now, there are some must-have accessories and upgrades that make the truck look better, last longer, make the truck more functional, more enjoyable to own, and don't break the bank. These are the things that I added to my truck that are well worth the money. There will be links to all these things down in the comments for you to check them out if you want. Stick around until the end to hear about one of my favorite upgrades. It adds a custom touch to the truck for little money, and many people would consider it a must-have for this generation Tundra. The key fob didn't come with any kind of cover, so I wanted to find something that would help protect it from getting all scuffed up, especially if it ever gets dropped or tossed around with other keys. This leather cover turned out to be a perfect fit for the Tundra key, and it actually works well with other Toyota keys too. It wraps around the fob nicely without adding a lot of bulk, so the key still fits comfortably in your pocket or wherever you usually keep it. What I like most about it is that it gives a good layer of protection. If the key falls on pavement or a rough surface, the leather cover helps absorb the impact and keeps the plastic from getting all scratched up. And if you have other keys in the ring, this cover keeps them from rubbing up against the fob and leaving marks. The one I picked is mostly black with a bit of brown and some red stitching, which kinda ties in nicely with the red Toyota theme, but they have a few different colors. Overall, it protects the key and gives it a cleaner, more luxurious look, especially since the fob on its own is pretty plain looking. For under $20, I picked up this rubber Toyota Hitch cover. It's a small upgrade, but one that I've done to every truck I've owned. The hitch receiver looks fine when it's brand new and it hasn't been used yet, but it seems like the moment you actually put it to use, it starts to rust and just makes the whole back end of the truck look a little worn out. It's one of those little details that can take away from the overall look, even if the rest of the truck is clean and well kept. This cover is a simple fix that makes a noticeable difference. It's way better than leaving the receiver exposed, looking rusty, because I like to keep the truck looking new and clean. With the cover on, the back end just looked a lot cleaner and more put together. I went with the black Toyota version because it kind of blends in. It hides the receiver without being flashy. Nothing shiny, no huge logos, just subtle and functional, which is more my style. Some people go for the chrome covers or ones with big emblems, and that's cool if you're into that, but I prefer something a little more low-key. It keeps the back end looking neat, does what it's supposed to do, and doesn't draw unnecessary attention to something you don't want to jump out. It's one of those small touches that might not seem like a big deal, but once it's on there, it makes the whole truck look a little more finished and more intentional. Plus, it keeps water, mud, salt, and other gunk from getting inside the hitch receiver. Personally, tinting the windows is one of those upgrades I would consider absolutely essential, especially if you live in a place that gets a lot of sun. For the relatively low cost of just getting the front windows done, it's hands down one of the best bang for your buck mods you can make. It immediately gives the truck a more polished and finished look, and the impact on comfort, particularly in hotter climates, is honestly hard to overstate. By cutting down a significant amount of heat and UV rays, the tint helps keep the cabin noticeably cooler even on those really hot days. That means the truck stays cooler when sitting outside and the AC doesn't have to work as hard. It's one of those changes you really feel the benefit of every time you get into your vehicle. I matched the front windows to the factory tint on the rears, so everything has a seamless, consistent look, nothing patchy or uneven. It still provides solid privacy without going overboard, and it's not so dark that it makes night driving difficult. I also added a clear ceramic tint to the windshield that doesn't change the look, but blocks out a surprising amount of heat. It made a bigger difference than I expected, especially during long drives in the afternoon sun. The only part I haven't tackled yet is the moonroof. It lets in a surprising amount of heat. Even with the sunshade closed, you can still feel the heat radiating down from above. The shade on these panoramic moonroofs isn't like the solid ones that just slide back and forth. It's more of a thin, retractable screen that has to roll up when you open the roof, so it doesn't block out much heat and you can see the light coming through it if you look closely. I've come across mixed reviews about tinting the glass. Some people say it helps a lot with the heat, but others warn that it could lead to the glass cracking or even shattering due to the extra heat absorption. So for now, I'm playing it safe and leaving it as is, but I'm still on the fence about whether or not to go for it. I installed this bed cover that Paragon sent over, and it really makes the truck bed much more functional, at least for what I use it for. Since the tailgate locks automatically when you lock the doors, it adds a nice layer of security, and the cover itself is made from solid aluminum, which is durable and light, so I feel a lot better about leaving stuff in the back. Unlike a soft vinyl cover that someone could just slice open, this one would actually take some effort to break into. It kinda gives the truck SUV-like practicality. You can stash gear in the bed, keep it protected from the weather, and still lock it all up safely. They have a few different models for this truck, but this is the limited HDX model. It has a powder coat finish that has a slight texture and seems to resist scratches. It sits slightly above the bed instead of flush with it, so it's more easily able to shed water. Rather than having a trifold design, it slides forward in an accordion-like fashion. A big plus is how easy it is to remove. You just slide it forward and pull it all out in one piece, which is perfect when you need full use of the bed, and it's light enough for one person to remove easily. Because it sits slightly above the bed, it doesn't cut into any cargo space. It looks clean from the outside, doesn't rattle or make any noise when driving over bumps, and does a great job keeping everything dry inside. Installing it took me a couple of hours, and the cover has been on here for a couple of months now and has held up really well. It still looks brand new, as expected. Rubber floor mats are honestly a must-have for just about any vehicle, whether you're using your truck for work or just daily driving. Even if you're not constantly dragging in mud or snow, they make a big difference when it comes to keeping the interior clean. They protect the carpet underneath from spills, dirt, and wear, and the best part is they're way easier to clean than regular fabric mats. With carpet mats, dirt and sand get stuck in the fibers, and no matter how much you vacuum, it always feels like there's still grit left behind. Rubber mats, on the other hand, are simple. You just pull them out, shake them off, maybe rinse them down, and they're good to go. Unlike a lot of them, this brand isn't a sticky rubber texture that holds onto the dirt. It's more like a plastic that makes them much easier to vacuum, sweep out, or dump out. Another bonus is the added coverage. These ones have some of the better coverage of the ones I've seen, better than OEM and a lot of the other ones out there. They catch all the mess before it gets into those hard to clean areas, like where the carpet meets the trim. I'll admit, OEM carpet mats do look better, but for day-to-day practicality, rubber wins hands down. They save you time, keep the interior looking better over the long haul, and make cleanup much quicker and easier. Not to mention, you're avoiding the whole mess of sand, salt, and mud getting ground deep into the carpet, especially around the left dead pedal, which always seems to take the worst of it. Once that area gets dirty and worn, no amount of cleaning really makes it look fresh again. And with proper floor liners, you don't have to mess with pulling back trim pieces just to get dirt out of the door sill area. Honestly, this is one of those upgrades I'd recommend right away for any vehicle. It just makes life easier and keeps things looking new longer. This one doesn't really fall into the category of a traditional accessory like floor mats or a bed cover, but it's still something I added to the truck that made a real difference in how it feels to drive. I picked up a Carista, which is a small, unassuming little module that plugs directly into the OBD2 port. What it does is gives you access to a bunch of hidden settings and customization options that you can't normally access through the truck's infotainment screen. Usually, if you wanted to tweak any of these deeper settings, like turning off certain alerts or changing how specific features behave, you'd have to schedule a visit to the dealer and probably pay them to do it. But with Carista, all you need is the module and their app on your phone, and you can do it all yourself. You can change a whole bunch of settings in about 5 minutes. Once it's connected, you can scroll through all sorts of customization options. Things like turning off the annoying seatbelt warning beeps when you're just moving the truck around the yard or down the street, adjusting how many times the turn signal blinks when you tap it for a lane change, changing the volume of the turn signal itself, and a bunch of other little tweaks that fall into the same category. Stuff you'd expect to find in the infotainment screen, but with more control and depth. The main reason I got it though was to disable the engine sound enhancement feature. That's the one that pumps synthetic or amplified engine noise into the cabin to make the driving experience feel a bit more aggressive or sporty. To be fair, it doesn't sound bad. It actually gives the impression that you're driving something with a bit more bite than a V6. But in a truck that's naturally quiet and refined, the fake engine noise ended up feeling kinda out of place. It just didn't match the vibe of the vehicle, and after a while, it started to feel more annoying than immersive, especially considering it still sounds like a V6 when you're outside the truck. The great part about the Carista for this was that I didn't have to commit to turning it off permanently without testing it. I could toggle the sound enhancement on and off a few times, drive around with both settings, and figure out which one I like better. That kind of trial and error flexibility is something you're just not going to get if you go through a dealer. Once they change it, it stays that way, unless you're going to go back and ask them to undo it. So having the ability to make those changes myself, whenever I wanted, was a huge plus. It's worth noting that you do need a subscription to Carista's service to actually make the changes. Just plugging in the device isn't enough. But once you've made your changes, you can cancel the subscription and all of your settings stay exactly the way you left them. Then, if you ever want to go back in and make more adjustments, you can just resubscribe. Depending on how much you want to tinker, the whole thing ends up paying for itself pretty quickly. If you're even remotely interested in customizing your vehicle beyond the default settings, it's definitely worth the money. I wasn't totally sure at first if I wanted to turn off the engine noise for good, but after driving around without it, I realized I actually preferred the quieter ride. It felt more natural, and as a bonus, you can hear the turbos a lot more clearly, which is way more satisfying anyway. Those are all the small upgrades I've made to this truck so far. And honestly, most of them are what I'd consider must-haves for just about any truck. They might seem minor on their own, but together they really improve the overall experience. Whether it's making the interior more comfortable, keeping things cleaner, or just adding a bit more functionality and personalization.